What's going on? You guys are probably confused. You're like, what are you doing with this little paperback book right here? Why aren't you reading comics? Well, because I found this at Half Price Books. This is the book that was the first science fiction book I ever read. And by the way, who am I? I'm John Delarose, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction. And so science fiction means a lot to me, obviously, since I've been making a professional career out of this for several years. You can go to my website and download a science fiction novel yourself. If you like Star Trek, you're gonna enjoy my science fiction stories. It's delarose.com, and the link will be in the description below. You get the free novel for signing up. Great deal. Incredible deal. All right, let's get into this book. So this was the first book I ever read. What happened, or not the first book I ever, first science fiction book I ever read. And I was home, actually, with the chicken pox. And I got the chicken pox late. I didn't get it early like everybody else. There was a breakout at my school, and I had never had it for some reason. And I got it, and it sucked. And so I was home miserable, and my mom brought this back from the grocery store because they used to have these little paperbacks at the grocery store. At the time, Star Trek novels would come out very regularly, and I got into the habit of it for a number of years because of this book. And it was so neat. I read this all in the 2 days that I was out and in bed, basically, because of that deal. And I was just enamored with it. The year is 1994 or 1995, somewhere in there. So I was in 6th grade, and Star Trek Generations had just come out before, so I was getting heavily into Star Trek because I saw that one in theaters, and I thought it was awesome. And so we were having a good time. This was a really cool thing for my mom to get me. I was so stoked. And I loved it. I was so obsessed with this. Like I said, it spurred me into just reading basically only Star Trek novels for almost the next 10 years. I mean, like I said, they came out with so many, it was hard to keep up with them. And I tried to collect them for a while. It didn't really work out. Maybe I'll pick up a bunch of those again. They're real cheap now. What did I get this for at half price? Like $3? Pretty good. Maybe I'll get a bunch again. And I had no idea what it was at the time, and really didn't know anything. I didn't know who Peter David was. This was just a blind in. And since I knew Generations, and I knew that Excelsior, and I knew Captain Sulu, I was like, okay, that's cool. And I went in on that from that perspective. Now, I hadn't watched really much original series. I watched some of the movies prior to that because those were easy to obtain. But this is back before we had streaming services and all that. So I wasn't watching tons of episodes. Next Generation was on as reruns periodically. DS9 was on, and I was kind of getting into that. But that was the life point at this. So I was obsessed, and I really loved it. And did it hold up? So I read it recently, this last couple weeks, and these are really fluffy, easy novels to read when you're almost 40. Let me tell you, it's a big difference from when you're 12, which I guess it was at the time too, since I read it so fast. But it's just a nice little thing, and I got into it this time. The story takes place after Generations, and it starts with Captain John Harriman of the USS Enterprise B. And in Generations, they announced him. He's kind of like a goofball character for a little bit of slapstick, showing kind of a contrast for how heroic Kirk is at the beginning of that. And they're launching the ship, but they're with a skeleton crew, and of course not much going on. And it's like photon torpedoes. They arrive on Tuesday. I remember the lines very well. They arrive on Tuesday. Every time like anything was asked, they'd arrive on Tuesday because we don't have it all yet. And then, finally, Kirk, comes in, for one before he even finishes the question and goes, let me guess, Tuesday. And so that was that. And Harriman was woefully unprepared compared to Captain Kirk, who really just took over, seized the day, and became a hero to save people and lost his life in the process in a not very dramatic sense. But, the movie continued on from that point. All right. I could do another talk about Generations, but we'll go off on that for now. Already getting too long into this video. So this takes place there, and what was nice was they introduced character Demora Sulu, who was the daughter of Captain Sulu, in that movie, and she got one line, and they mentioned, it wouldn't be an Enterprise without a Sulu at the helm, which was weird for a Next Generation movie because there was no Sulu at the helm on that Enterprise, but whatever, it felt good at the time, right? And so she got a little bit of airtime, and they wrote this book basically around her and around Sulu because there was no backstory about how this guy had a daughter. What the heck happened? And no, Sulu in the TV show was not super gay George Takei that we have nowadays. He was a very much just a, not that. So this is what we got. So we open it up with the daughter. They're on a mission. They go down to a planet. Harriman is already kind of PTSD scarred because he lost Captain Kirk. And how do you have a career when you're that guy? And so he's trying to do everything by the book, and it kind of doesn't work out. And spoiler, Demora gets killed. And he's like, great, now I've killed Captain Kirk, and I've killed Hikaru Sulu's daughter. I'm just screwed with my career. And we get to Sulu. He finds out about the news. Of course, he's very livid. Chekhov is actually even more livid, and he ends up punching Captain Harriman in the face at the funeral. Really good dramatic stuff. Peter David does some fun character moments where they go back and forth here. And what he did really great is Chekhov felt like Chekhov. Sulu felt like Sulu. Very nice on that front. The other characters really weren't developed enough, and he did develop them as people. But you really get to Harriman's personal struggle through this because it's like, geez, what a bad spot to start from. You learn that he's got a backstory, that he's got an admiral father who really ushered him up, and he's a career guy. He's in that place because they want somebody on the Enterprise not to rock the boat like James T. Kirk did. They want to kind of reset Starfleet so it's a little more bureaucratic, and he's supposed to be that guy. And then it flashes back, and so she's dead, and it flashes back. So you get this book within a book, and the story, it's really only this long, and then at the end of it, you can skip over her backstory, and it's this long. It's basically a short story about her, and then Hikaru Sulu going and bucking Starfleet again, because they order him not to go investigate into it, and he does it anyway, just like the Search for Spock. So you get a lot of that member berries in there. Peter David does a really good job on that front with making sure the continuity and all that is put into place. And it turns out that the guy who was in charge of the shore leave planet was mad and concocted this whole deal in order to kind of get some revenge and things like that. So that's it. It was a pretty nice story. And she was alive at the end of it. So of course, they did that. That was the big reveal. But really what was interesting is the 3/4 of the book that went back into Sulu's past, where we found out who the mother was, we found out her deal and how he got attached to her. Really good relationship moments there. She was an interesting character and kind of a rogue and kind of a seedy type of person, very opposite of Sulu, but in a lot of ways, just because they had a sense of adventure together, they came together at that point. And they had a one night, and she disappeared forever. Dun, dun, dun. And then eventually, it turned out she was dead, and Demora was thrust into his life while this was after motion picture, I guess, where Sulu was working at Starfleet Academy. And suddenly he's thrust with this daughter, and he has to raise her, and he really just wants to go back out to the stars and lead a starship again, which of course he does later on the Excelsior. So nice stuff, just so much character stuff between father-daughter, between Sulu and that woman, and then of course Harriman's character development was awesome here too. I mean, Peter David took care for the B characters and gave them arcs and plots and all that also. So this is just a really well done book. Does it work if you're not a Star Trek fan? Probably not, because you're coming to that generation spot. If you don't care about Sulu already, you're gonna have a hard time with this. He can make you do it, but there's a lot of those those moments with Demora really hit the moments in the Star Trek, in between the Star Trek movies. So you understand that Search for Spock's happening. You understand that the Voyage Home's happening. And when I was 12, I probably didn't understand all those beats that well and still enjoyed it, but I still kind of knew them, right? So I came into it still kind of knowing it. But this is as a continuation novelization, this is good stuff. This was enjoyable. Now, I actually didn't remember any of these story elements other than Demora Sulu existing, her dying, and coming back to life. I knew that happened, and that's all I remembered about the book. How many years later is this? 35 years later after reading it the first time? Jesus. Had no idea. And so it was kind of a fresh plot to me again, but it definitely held up. This stands the test of time. I don't know that I'd read every Star Trek book at this point, but maybe one's by Peter David, because he's got a track record of doing things really well. And I remember other great books by him. The Imzadi book, which dealt with Riker and Troy's relationship. And then he actually did his own crew for a while called Star Trek Frontiers. He got to write his own fanfic, basically. And so that was kind of neat around. But I'm glad I revisited this. This did hold up totally well. Again, I wouldn't recommend it for non-Star Trek fans. I think, you should watch the episode Shore Leave, watch Generations, and probably watch all the movies prior to that, really to get the most out of this. And that's it. All right, cool. Thumbs up. Hit the like and subscribe button. See you guys.